This is the Global View on Q. A warm welcome to all of our Q family listeners at home and globally. I'm Sheridan Gregoire, Mr. G. It's Tuesday, July 25, 30th Tuesday of 2023, and it's exactly just about 8:04 p.m. The studios at Q95. We're live on Facebook and on YouTube. Follow us at Q95 FM Radio. The on your phone numbers are on the homepage of our website at www.q95da.com. Please share the live, like our pages, get the latest breaking news and reviews on Q95, the big station. We continue tonight to revive the spirit of graciousness, of love, peace, and prosperity, and unity among our Kalinago and Afro-Caribbean brothers and sisters. I'm joined tonight, and I'm delighted to be joined tonight by some very distinguished guests. Justice Dr. Irving Andre, UWP political leader and financial economist Dr. Thomson Fontaine, and attorney Gabriel Christian. They will have their say on the diplomatic disaster which Dominica has been sunk, literally lock, stock, and barrel, and literally headfirst. They will clearly articulate the major misfortunes now facing Dominicans with more visa restrictions that may soon come from the US and the European Union, following actions that have already been taken by the UK and Canada. The DLP regime CBI program has certainly placed Dominica's regular passports and diplomatic passports in the hands of unsavory characters, crooks and criminals that are long-standing allies and developed countries considered to be national security risks for their countries because of the failure to perform adequate due diligence. So all kinds of money can flow from all kinds of sources. But who is getting all of that money? Certainly not ordinary Dominicans. So the chickens have now come home to roost. I've just put out a few talking points, and I will ask my guests to show the stark difference in terms of how this affects people's lives between a one-man. Yes, to show the difference between a one-man dictatorship and a functioning democracy that is based on free and fair elections on a level playing field, and to show the negative international collateral damage derived from the failure to implement genuine electoral and campaign finance laws and regulations on free and fair elections that can prevent a few of these vexing things like inadequate due diligence resulting in rogue diplomats and dubious CBI passport buyers, causing problems like the recent harsh British response for national security concerns, resulting in ordinary Dominicans now having to apply for and pay for visas to visit the UK. Looks like the chickens are really coming home to roost. To prevent the tarnishing of Dominica's reputation by people like Maduke and Corallo and Paris and Montferrat, Lapsang and many others. One of my friends said the crowns of thorns placed on the head of Dominicans is bruising and bleeding us, and which is a more disastrous for ordinary Dominicans. Isn't that right? I believe it's going to be more disastrous for ordinary Dominicans. So how do we rescue our people and our country? Are there any rules governing Dominica's civil service? Is there any way to prevent sitting ministers of government from being beneficiary to hotels, to commercial and residential buildings financed by CBI funds? Is there any way to prevent permanent secretaries or cabinet secretary from signing agreements for an airport or to fund hotels in the name of public servants? Any way to silence? And we know that the silence of the police chief is so deafening, and that of the police force, the Criminal Investigation Department, CID, the Audit Department, the Integrity in Public Office Commission, IPO, they're all silent. The Financial Crimes Unit, the Financial Intelligence Unit, and the People's AG. Why are they so silent? Is there any remaining function in public institution in Dominica? One of my friends said also, if the police will not stop this bold-faced thievery, is it then left solely to actions by people's power? But I have not heard anyone that I know of say or suggest constitutional cool wash brigades. But electoral campaign finance reforms and free and fair elections are really meant to provide good and accountable government that forestalls carefully hand-picked thieves from kicking back non-stop millions and maybe even billions for revolving doors and to fund lavish US multi-million dollar election campaigns of one party that has not raised one dime of its own. So here's a question. The intellectual class mostly fail us in refusing to organize to build community, right? Free and fair elections and democracy is beyond partisanship. The cause of nation building is beyond partisan politics. It's about the quality of our service to regain the soul of our nation. So sitting on the fence and hiding in the shadows can no longer be a pursuit, while wondering why our island is decaying in a kingdom of corruption, fear, and decadence. My distinguished guest tonight, Dr. Irving Andre, UWP political leader and financial economist, Dr. Thomson Fontaine, and attorney Gabriel Christian, will share their views on these issues and help us decide on actions that we must all take and the way forward to secure free and fair elections that will give us good, accountable, transparent government and return us to the path of democracy. They will likely tell us more about the reasons why they have been saying that we must stop our leaders and their rich foreign friends from getting richer while ordinary Dominicans are getting poorer. Prevent our public service officers from being abused by bias and poor salaries. Protect our public service from being abused by corruption, mismanagement. Being paid very poor wages, yes, we know about the 0 and 1 and 1%, while some close to the GLP regime get richer and richer. Some of my friends say that we must arrest the growing incidence of physical and sexual abuse of our children and the destruction of our environment by foreign construction companies that violate our environmental planning and procurement processes. We must put an end to the whole business of growing in food insecurity, direct result of deliberate killing of our agriculture and our manufacturing sectors. Ensure that the CBI is brought under control and the funds are used to rebuild and transform the structures of our industries. As we know, we've been independent now for 45 years, and yet when we look at the state of our manufacturing and our processing, our capacity is diminished. We're back 45 years, way behind what we had in 1978, and this is a catastrophe. We need to stop the alarming decline in the quality of our healthcare. I'm sure that we will talk about that later. We listened to the budget of our former Minister for Health, who is now the Minister responsible for Finance. He told us a few things about our health sector. Not everyone appears to agree with what he's saying about the state of our health sector. He seems to think we have a state-of-the-art health sector. I'm not sure that everyone agrees with that. And I'm certainly sure that we need to end the domination of economy by big foreign interests such as MMCE, while making a mockery of our procurement laws. And put the bricks on our young people having to be fleeing our country because the poor economy gives them very little hope. The overall decline of our economy is clearly evident all around us. Dominica is collapsing in every way, in every day, under the policies of this current regime. So I will be looking to my guest tonight to help lay out and design a new direction for the economy. We have Dr. Thomson Fontaine with us, and I hope he can help us with that based on solid foundations of major pillars like agriculture, manufacturing, processing of our natural products, adding value to them, and on fast-growing global knowledge industries with the support of our democratic allies. We know that no decent democratic nation or group of nations right now take our country seriously. We've heard Mr. Gonzalez, we've heard the St. Lucians, we've heard all of these other people who are saying, hey, it wasn't me. We have always expressed the view that no government should stay in power for too long, as power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So I believe, and I've been saying so, it is high time for a change of government to restore democracy and bring back hope to our youth. So we will take your calls. The people's voice is always a priority on the big station. And my distinguished guests, Justice Irving Andre and political youth, public political leaders, financial economist Thomson Fontaine and attorney Gabriel Christian. They will certainly provide us with many more insights and specific recommendations to deal with the inappropriate provisions that certainly must be removed from the draft laws proposed by Sir Dennis Byron and replaced by firm recommendations proposed for the draft electoral campaign finance laws and regulations by Dominica's own trusted Justice Dr. Irving Andres, representing the people's agenda. I'm sure that my guests will speak about the consequences of having tainted elections that result in bad governance and undue foreign influence that has taken us where we are now, and speak to the prospects for Dominica's future economy under good governance, arising out of free and fair elections on a level playing field. And so we all know that it is widely acknowledged that the provisions which require constitutional amendments will take place in the course of time, in due course, but plans for that undertaking must consider the fierce urgency of now and must not unnecessarily be delayed, not after spending $650,000 of people's money and failing to deliver what the people want in the sole consultant's draft four bits of legislation. Remember them? House of Assembly Elections Bill 2023, House of Assembly Elections Regulations, House of Assembly Election Petition Rules 2023, and Election Commission Bill 2023. I'm sure that my distinguished guests will remind us again of the information and arguments that we can give to an attorney and have them remove these offending provisions in those draft laws and regulations and replace them with Andre's unrepresented appropriate provisions that we all agree will lead to a level playing field, free and fair elections, and good governance. So we're also looking for good governance to stop the hemorrhage in our economy. I expect that my guests and you, our cherished listeners, will embrace the widely accepted, very specific recommendations of the provisions to be included in the People's Draft Electoral Laws and Regulations. Meantime, my guests and you, our cherished listeners, will make the case for the urgency of arriving at a consensus now and to go forward with one crystal clear voice from political parties, from trade unions, the private sector, civic organizations, including churches, on these desired electoral and campaign finance laws and regulations that are certainly more appropriate for Dominica's needs. So I'm sure that my guests will also tell us to reject the proposed plan of the Skerrit-led DLP regime and his handpicked political appointee, Dr. Kenneth Daru, to predetermine the results of any upcoming consultation, as this certainly lacks transparency. So wherever you are, in Dominica, in the region, and globally, please tune in, call in, join the conversation, get the answers to your questions, be part of the solution on the big station. As usual, much love, hugs, and kisses, huge shout outs, appreciation, and a big thank you to our healthcare providers, our frontline workers, our police and fire officers, teachers, police, doctors, nurses, and other private and public sector patriots. Welcome every Dominican, a friend of Dominica. We embrace you wherever you are tonight, in every nook and cranny, every village, every community in Dominica, in the region and globally. Thank you, Sherwin, for keeping us on the air. Thank you, Lambi, on the console at Q95 tonight, directing the traffic. Let's get started. I go now to you, Justice Dr. Irving Andre, to get the ball rolling to help us determine where we go from here, the urgency of getting there sooner rather than later, to bring back a level playing field and free and fair elections that will help stabilize the democracy, quell any notion of making Dominica a one-party state at the whims and fancies of any future wannabe dictator, to sustain the democracy, build the economy, improve people's lives and livelihoods, and take the people of Dominica out of what appears to be a never-ending cycle of poverty, mendicancy that we are witnessing. I would ask that you please unmute your mic. Dr. Andre, you get the first word.
Thank you, Mr. G, and let me thank my fellow panelists. It's good to see them. I always look forward to hearing their student contributions to a national debate. It is something that we should not shy away from doing, irrespective of the feedback and the backlash that we receive. Again, we're ready to take on anyone, but again, there are those who would rather throw stones from the dark crevasses of their own psychophancy. But we are here tonight to talk about a very important national issue. That is to say, the most recent episode concerning the sale of passports, Dominican passports, to anyone who has the money to buy it, irrespective of pious pontifications about due diligence, about we having the most robust system of due diligence in the world. What has been revealed has shown the bankruptcy of that information. And let me start by echoing something you said, Mr. G. The chickens have come home to roost. The warnings of patriotic Dominicans over the last couple of years that the indiscriminate sale of Dominican passports will come back to haunt Dominica as in spades. Foreigners who have been denied entry into England have used Dominican passports to enter England. England has said that we must stop this immediately. No more visa free entry into England by persons carrying a Dominican passport. Now, those who have warned against this very scenario have been dismissed by supporters and sycophants of the political directorate. Some of them have stated rather dishonestly, we do not sell passports. Others have piously stated that we must not wash our dirty linen or laundry in public. End of quote. Those who say so ignore the fact that the sale of our passports, given the dangers it posed, is itself a blatant act of putting our greed and dirty morals on public display. As a result, the foreigners who have purchased our passports for their own selfish ends have punished law abiding Dominicans by forcing them to go through the onerous and expensive and lengthy process of obtaining a visa to visit their loved ones in England. Sadly, this step taken by England is merely the first act in a play in which other European Euro Union countries are waiting to follow the example of England. These countries, according to the Prime Minister Gonzalez, have wants and kits Grenada, Antigua, St. Lucia, and Dominica, that it is not a matter of if Europe will impose visa requirements on their nationals. It will be a matter of when they are going to bring down the hammer. You shall reap what you sow. In Dominica, we have been sowing the seeds of our own destruction for almost 2 decades. These seeds have produced bitter fruit that have stunted the growth and development of Dominica. Think of the various acts that have caused patriotic Dominicans so much pain and distress. The bin bobble, the fertilizer bobble, no bid contracts such as a Bajan company being given a contract for the extension of the runway of the Douglas Charles Airport, the giving of our protected lands to foreigners, the sale of our parrots abroad, the destruction of the Public Works Department, the destruction of a whole village, the transporting of voting tourists to sabotage free and fair elections in Dominica, the disappearance of $700,000 owed to Gilden Richards, the disappearance of a $100 million donated to Dominica by Hugo Chavez, the disappearance of $10 million given to the Kalinago Nation, the disappearance of $3 million donated by the United States to build a facility at Capuchin, the disappearance of $20 million invested by a Chinese national in the Layo Hotel years ago, the disappearance of over $6 billion of the proceeds of sales of Dominican passports in mysterious accounts in Switzerland and in other countries, the frenzied erection of hotels, the great hulks of grain and decaying concrete caskets at Picard, Layo, and the Cabrites, which stand as grim reminders of a country sailed by its own leaders and their lackeys. The crucifixion of local businesses, the desecration of the legacy of previous leaders. Three $30 million given by the World Health Organization for COVID relief, none for persons suspected of supporting the opposition. $30 million to Zampoli or whatever his name for his commission for selling Dominican passports. We are awash in money in our island washing machine. Money for vanity expenses, such as $175 million or more for an SUV, $64,000 monthly for rent, millions of dollars to fly people to Dominica to vote, mysterious mansions, but no money for salary increases, retrenchment of public servants, electricity gone up, water rates gone up, sauce and fascine, or fascine as Gabriel calls it, gone up, gas gone up, no money for toilet paper and tetanus shots at hospitals. And so, according to Peter Tosh, we got to find a solution for this pollution. Now, how realistic is it for the current administration, Mr. G, to institute free and fair elections in Dominica in accordance with the prescription by Sir Dennis Byron? Of course, they would love to institute those reforms proposed by him, because it gives them a carte blanche to continue unabated what they've been doing. It gives them the unfettered ability to spend as much money on elections with virtually no checks and balances. It gives them the ability, quite frankly, to control the press. It gives them the ability to do whatever they've been doing before. It gives them the ability, Mr. G, to recruit persons abroad as they've been doing over the past 3 electoral cycles to come to vote, because they believe that giving money to our friends to come to vote is not corruption, it's not bribery, despite the fact that their own legal acolyte said in his report that according to the Hillsbury laws of England, it's a criminal offense. So they want to do what they've been doing before. And some of their own apostles have said, Mr. G, that these reforms will ensure that they will remain in power forever. That is what confronts Dominica. That is the sad state of affairs that we are in. And that is why the whole question of electoral reform is not a gift from heaven. It's not a gift from a legal deity. It is a right that the Dominican public has to claim as its own. Because no recipe proposed by some legal lord on high will reverse this sorry trend, will reverse the fate that awaits Dominica. The actions of the English are only the beginning. As Prime Minister Gonzalez have warned, European Union have said, it is not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And as that happens, the attraction of the Dominican passport will dissipate significantly. And then the chickens will really start coming home to roost, particularly those who've paid tens or hundreds of thousands for passports that would give them visa-free entry to over 150 countries, because that is what the ads are boasting, whether in Beirut, whether in Afghanistan. That is the attraction of the Dominican passport. They tell you, oh, they love Dominica. Those persons who've never even set foot on Dominica, we are made to believe they're buying passports because they love Dominica so much. What do they love? Is it the black pudding? Is it the fascine? Or is it the grafted mango? What is it do they love? What did Montfarret love, Mr. G? We know what he loved. What did Maduike love? Yes, the Maduike. the one who received a diplomatic passport brought to her in England. And when the British tried to arrest her, guess what happened, Mr. G? She pulled out her diplomatic passport, mind you, because she was Dominica's trade and some industry commissioner, for God's sakes, or crook who is wanted in Nigeria for embezzling billions of dollars. Dominica's trade and something commissioner, Gabriel or Thomson may know better than I, in proud possession of Dominica's passports. Don't talk about the one who was the proposed ambassador to Ireland. Let's not even waste our time talk about him. Let's not talk about Corallo. Let's talk about the others, Paris, that Gabriel and Thomson will talk about. Is it by coincidence that they're in possession of Dominican passports? No, because the fact that they're in possession of these passports revealed to us as clear as day what is the justification for selling these passports. To milk the cow, to get as much money as possible, and to hell with due diligence. That's the bottom line. And that is why we're here today. I was listening to Pastor Rodney some time ago, and he said, you know what, garçon? Well, he didn't say garçon, sorry. He said, it's un vierge. Now, I thought that was some love term he was repeating, but my Creole English dictionary told me no, un vierge, it's greed. And he's perfectly correct. We only have to look around Dominica to see the mysterious mansions that are sprouting all over Dominica. We only have to look at those things. The things that the supporters don't want to talk about. The things that the supporters come with bogus explanations as to why this is happening. All this is evidence as to the allure and the attractiveness of the sale of passports. Because most of the money does not go or find its way into the consolidated fund. And according to the latest calculations by Mr. Linton, approximately 7 billion is missing. And we may not know the exact amount, but we see the evidence of it. The indiscriminate spending, the obsession with building hotels at a time when our occupancy rate is about 15%. Say hotels nouvelle fait. At a time when one is literally sinking into the landscape. At a time when you, as I said, you have concrete hulks in Picard and in other parts of Dominica. Lulu destinations. But we still continue building hotels because these hotels have only one justification: to build washing machines all over Dominica. But the happiness will not last forever. That's what history teaches us. The good times will go. And that is why the whole question of electoral reform is so significant as we speak. Because without it, without giving people the ability to exercise an honest choice in terms of who governs them, we are on a road to perdition, to damnation. And I don't think I am exaggerating because the evidence is there. The evidence is there. And at no time in our history have Dominicans, patriotic Dominicans, been tested, have been tested so much, and have been asked to dig deep to see what is your mettle. What are you prepared to do to help save your heritage, your own cherished land? It's not an abstract question. It's not an academic question. It's a question which is grounded in reality. And that is where we are. We're at a juncture where we have to say unequivocally, we do not expect or we have no desire to be given electoral reforms because we know the form, we know the cloven feet of electoral reforms which is being advocated. What we want are electoral reforms that empower our people to chart their own course, to determine their own fate, to take back their country, because otherwise it will be destroyed before our very eyes. Thank you.
And thank you, Dr. Andre. Extremely well said indeed. Now, Gabriel Christian, I want to put something to you. Mr. Skerritt told Dominicans his plan is to be in office for 50 years. He said once that his son will be taking over after him. Now, we've heard Justice Dr. Andre, the good justice, listed a litany of things there that some of those numbers look frightening. And I'm just going to look at those numbers again and then ask you, is this the reason why people want to be in office all this time? And you know what they've always said? Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Question is, when you hear about 100 million US dollars from Venezuela, $10 million that's supposed to go to the Kalinago territory, $7 to $9 billion of CBI money unaccounted for. 175,000 for SUV, $64,000 a month for rent. And the list goes on and on and on. I hear about all these characters. I call them unsavory characters, like Maduke and Corral and all these people. When you hear about them having our diplomatic passports, and they all appointed the designations for things that we have absolutely no idea what they're doing. And then, of course, we didn't even have an idea that they were appointed. In fact, when the question was asked in the parliament, we were told, no, you cannot divulge information about people who hold these passports and people appointed as diplomats. That's what we were told. Gabriel, you're a learned attorney. So I'm putting those things to you to see if you can help us in some of those things. That's why these things are happening. You want to unmute your mic so that we can hear you.
Blessed good evening to you, Brother G.
Evening, Gable.
Blessed good evening to you, Brother Lambie at Master Control. Blessed good evening to you, Brother Irving. Blessed good evening to you, Brother Thomson. This is a very painful and bitter moment in the lives of those of us who dedicated our entire life to the development, preservation, and promotion of the best interest of our beloved country. I want to take a moment this time to thank all of the patriots, all of those who were able to endure this past decade or more of sacrifice, of abuse, of vilification, of accusation, and crucifixion on Calvary's cross, simply because we raised the banner of decency, of patriotism, of honesty, of trustworthiness, of love for country and not self, love for nation and not filthy lucre, and duty to the last, the least, and the left behind. Why do I say this? Not only do I want to send a shout out to all of us who were so brave to be called enemies of the state and still endure, to be called traitors and still endure, to be called CIA agents and still endure. Also want to thank Thomson Fontaine of the Dominican.net, where 12 years ago, this was the article, December 17th, 2011. He placed it on his website at 9:50 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Title, The Looming Threat of Visa Restrictions, the Need to Rebrand Dominica. And it talks about all the valiant Dominicans who served in the Royal Air Force, from the Dominica Grammar School, the SMA, in the British Army, in the Royal Navy. Talked about the thousands and tens of thousands of Dominicans who went to England to make their homes in London, in Birmingham, in Liverpool, in Glasgow, and who served with honor. And on the 19th of July, 2023, in a blistering condemnation of the wicked and corrupt government that has destroyed our name in the international community, Britain sanctioned Dominica. So it's not a pleasant moment for those of us who've spent all our lives trying to give our country a good name. Irving Andre knows a little bit about literature. I think the play is Othello, Act 3. I think as Dominicans, we need to take a moment to be reminded of those things that our teachers taught us. Teachers like Dorothy Levy and Hubert Charles and Alwyn Bully, the famous literature teachers of our time. Quote, "Who steals my purse? Steals but trash." This is one of Shakespeare's greatest ironies, that he chose Iago to make that statement. The full verse, or full statement goes like this: "Who steals my purse steals trash. For something, nothing 'twas mine, now 'tis his, and has been slave to thousands. But he that filches from me, my good name, robs me of that which not enriches him, and makes me poor indeed. He who steals my good name." Roosevelt Skerritt, tonight we condemn you for stealing the good name of an entire people, an entire country. You squalid and dishonorable man. You've lied and lied until the British government has had to now sanction you. Mr. Skerritt, how much money did NG Lapsen pay you for that diplomatic passport? Can you tell us? Can you come on here and tell your family how much he paid you? Roosevelt Skerritt, can you come and tell us how much Alyssa Maduike paid you for that diplomatic position of, I'll tell you what the title was, Mr. G, or Irving, if you may have forgotten. It was Ambassador for Commerce, Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary. What commerce did she bring forth to Dominica? What was extraordinary about her? She was an extraordinary thief. You know, we were taught as children in Dominica, birds of a feather flock together. And so, one more rent in the garment of our precious name, one more tear, one more dagger in the heart of the Dominica we love. Mr. Skerritt, can you come and tell us, how much did you get paid by Ali Riza Monfared for his appointment as an ambassador? What did he do for us? Were you just giving those away free of charge? Like you give candy to a child? There was no money changing hands? You loved them so much? What did they do to show any love for us? What good name did they give our country? Can you tell us? Can you tell us what, if any, money changed hands with the appointment to the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization of Francesco Corallo? How many banana plantations did he run in Dominica? How much yam and yampe did he plant? How much dashing did he sell? Was he an agronomist? Was he an agricultural scientist? What value did he bring to us at the FAO that you would place him there? On and on and on. You go onto YouTube tonight, go onto YouTube, any one of you, anyone in reach of our voice, and put Dominica passport. And you see people in Iran, in Pakistan, in Russia, in Azerbaijan, all places, some of the places I've never heard of. One gentleman had the Dominica passport in his hand. He had the audacity, the unmitigated gall to have behind him the British flag And next to it, the Dominica flag. And it's saying, you get this passport and your access to Britain is assured. You know what I'd like to see happen? A class action suit against Roosevelt Skerritt and his conjurers by all those persons who were sold on the idea that he had the keys to the kingdom, that Britain had been given to him as an inheritance, you see, that he had the lock and the key to Buckingham Palace, you see, and he had the authority to invite people into another person's country. You see, what Dominicans don't understand is that 90% or so of the former colonies have no visa-free access to England. England chose to retain it only for a few of the former colonies. In the case of the Caribbean, the small ones, little population, English speaking, no reputation for gun running, no reputation for dope peddling, no reputation for house breaking, no reputation for terrorism and putting bombs in churches, putting bombs in planes, a reputation of a hardworking, intelligent, and God-fearing people who worked hard, tended patients in the hospital, worked in the mines, worked on the subway, worked on the bus stations, worked, honest, intelligent in our childhood. Mr. G, you can confirm. Brother Lambie, you can tell us. We would wait for the packages, the pounds, and their remittances alleviated the poverty in so many of the villages. And when they were done, they came back home to build their homes in the country that they loved. And you, Mr. Skerritt, that is the name you're giving us? I just met a client the other day who was a Dominican physician. And he said to me that the guy at Passport Control said to him, wow, you're born in Dominica? You're the first born Dominican I've met in 3 years. I've met hundreds of people coming through this position and I've not wet. In 3 years, not one born Dominican. And let me tell you my story. Our aunt, God bless her soul, made it to 100 in Glasgow, Scotland. She's the older sister of my father, younger sister of L.M. Christian, music teacher in Glasgow, 100 years old. My brother and I made it. And on the way back through London, in the evening, I met a gentleman. He looked distinguished. I said, good evening. I meant to engage him. I like to engage people in conversation. But the good Lord had a little surprise for me in store. Next morning, I saw him. I said, good morning, Governor. He said, I'm not a governor. I said, well, you look like a governor. I said, if you're not a governor, you must be the Lord Mayor. He said, I'm not the Lord Mayor. I said, where are you from? Because I noticed an accent. He said, I'm from Iraq, but I'm an engineer in Dubai. But I'm from Dominica. I'm a Dominican, and all of the 10 members of my family are Dominican. I said, really? I folded my arms. Sheridan, Gregoire, Irving, Andre, Brother Lambie, Brother Thomson. I said, tell me more. He said, it's a very nice little island in the Caribbean. English, you know. I can travel over the UK and Europe. I said, really? He says, yes. You should go there sometime. I said, I think I'll highly consider it. I have his card. He's an electrical engineer. And so what we have is those persons who he is taking his monies from, 70%, what did the gentleman who called them hungry hyenas say? 90% for them, 10% for the country. $46,000 or so in passport sales or more, we don't know because they don't give it any good accounting. Billions missing from the consolidated fund. And our name now. Dominica was placed front and center, ahead of Vanuatu and Namibia and all these other countries. And the British said, and I quote, the Dominican government had engaged in clear and evident abuse of the CBI program. They were abusive. And the same way they've abused the CBI is the very same way they've abused Dominica. Brother Irving was clinical in his dissection of the rotting corpse, the cadaver of that repugnant regime that has sat there for almost 20 years. Every day, some accident on the roadways. almost every week a murder, a shooting, an orgy of lawlessness. When we have tried to send people to Dominica, to send tourists to Dominica, they would call me up here at the courthouse, the Walking Tourist Board. John Cradaville, with his family, married his daughter at Ragged House Hotel. Judge Richard Sutherland stayed at the Fortune Hotel for his 40th wedding anniversary. Sheriff Donovan, with his whole crew of 20, at the Anchorage Hotel. That's the kind of thing we do. We would carry those brochures to our office. I would carry them in my bag, hand them out. I never once asked any hotelier for a commission. I did it, as we all did, out of the goodness of our hearts, because we love our country. And in the midst of this effort for us to promote the best of our country, we've been brought down to the abyss with the stinking, wicked machination of thievery, of lies, of the destruction of our reputation by a man who's lost all sanity. He has lost all sense of probity. He has lost his mind. He's delusional. He sits there in Roseau and believes he can lie and lie and lie and lie again, and no one will notice it. This, what he has done to Dominica, he is 100% responsible for. And the other people who are with him, who aid and abet him, they need to be aware of what I'm going to make in way of a solemn warning tonight. Don't take my word for it. I want all of you, those of you who are listening in the cabinet of Roosevelt Skerritt, I want you to go to the internet and look up RICO. It's the Corrupt and Racketeering Organizations Act, RICO. That anyone who is complicit in aiding and abetting money laundering that touches U.S. currency or any territory of the United States can be held complicit under the RICO statute. It was designed to cripple the mafia, the mob. It was designed to cripple the mafia, the mob. And this is exactly where Roosevelt Skerritt has placed in jeopardy each and every member of his cabinet. So to the members of the cabinet of Roosevelt Skerritt, you heard it from me. If you know what is good for you, you need to consider resigning now, because Dominica's government, as it is currently constituted, faces the threat of being declared a corrupt and racketeering organization. Why do I say this? How can you have, time and time again, a legion, a squadron, a battalion of money laundering fraudsters as diplomats, pacing the globe, using the diplomatic passport as the facilitating instrumentality, as the conveyance to ingress, that is to enter, and to egress, and that is to exit, the ports and airports of this world, and expect to get away from it? Do you think the rest of the world was blind? They were just waiting for the right moment, and the right moment is now. And the next shoe, when it drops, I don't want anybody to come and say we did not know, as the Germans did in 1945 when Hitler was overthrown. I was a cook. I was a medic. I wasn't there. To someone else. No one ever told me. You have been warned time and time again that your engagement with an unworthy, distrustful, criminal pattern of conduct has only one ending, and it's not pretty. So I weep for my country this evening, because too many of those in Dominica who knew better and could do better aided and abetted Roosevelt Skerritt in the destruction of our name. Today, Dominica is the island in the Caribbean with the most repugnant reputation as a country led by thieves, a country where one of his own partners called him and his associates a hungry hyena. That is his legacy. And may the Lord have mercy on our souls.
Thank you, Gabriel. Thank you so much for that introductory remark. And we're looking forward to a lot more from you as we go on tonight until the 10 o'clock hour. But as just before I go to Dr. Thomson Fontaine, I just wanted to reach out to all the folks who have joined us on Facebook and on YouTube. A lot of people have joined us already. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate you being there. we see if we can get some time to take a look at some of your comments. But please feel free to call. I know that Lambi will give out the numbers later, but you can always go on our website at www.q95da.com, and you can go on the log on to the Facebook page or the YouTube page, and whenever you feel like it, you can call us. We'll take all of your calls tonight. Dr. Thomson Fontaine, the political leader of the United Workers' Party, you are an expert in finance and economics. You have assisted many countries to take a look at their budgets, take a look at the state of their economic affairs, and to assist them and guide them. At this time here, and especially now tonight, because we just had a budget address from the finance minister of Dominica, who, as far as I know, is not a finance expert. I know he's an health expert. He's a medical doctor. And we've heard from him today. He presented a budget. I don't know what your thoughts are, and I would like to hear your thoughts on the budget, but it seems to me that the budget had many repetitions of many of the promises that were made in the past. And this budget addresses sometimes tend to make everything look nice and dandy and rosy. And then 3 months later, they come back for supplementary estimates because things are falling apart. I hope that is not the case again, but I know that you're more learned in these matters than I am, and you'll help to tell us about it. I know that the leader of the opposition in Dominica, I'm not so sure what a response is going to be on Thursday, but we'll all look forward to it. But certainly, I think the people of Dominica, you as being the head of the leading opposition party in Dominica, I think they would expect that at some point you will have a response to that budget. And you can probably start tonight with some of your remarks, and I'm sure you'll go into more detail much later after you've studied it in depth. But Dr. Fontaine, you've heard Gabriel Christian, you've heard Justice Dr. Thomson, Dr. Irving. You've heard about the abuse of patriots because they're there to tell the truth and to shine light on the darkness. You've heard about some of our patriots, our experts who are kept outside, and they're not allowed them to come in. And those who dare to come in and to say something, open their mouth, they arrest them and drag them to jail and charge them for all kind of bogus charges and can never get the cases brought. And for years, they're waiting for trial. And every time there is a postponement because there's no case really to prove. And you've heard also about the state of the health sector. We'll be hearing that all day today since the minister made his remarks about the glowing remarks he made about the condition of our health system and where we are. He did not say too much about the details of what is lacking at the hospital. I think Dr. Andre started reminding us about that. He said some things about the state of the economy. He thought we had all kinds of GDPs and he thought we were doing well, the economy is in good shape and they're going to invest and do all kinds of things for tourism. We've heard that before. He said he's going to expand the Melville Airport. We expanded it before. He's going to expand it, and that is going to make a huge difference in tourism arrivals. I'm not so sure why they'll be coming and where they're going to come from and for what. But that is what he said. And he said, work is going on the international airport. And he's given a timetable for when the terminal building is going to be built and all those kind of things there. So we heard all of that. And in the meantime, he didn't have too much to say about the fact that all these visa restrictions were placed on Dominica. He did not really acknowledge that almost 60% of the budget was going to rely on the proceeds from passport sales. And he did not indicate clearly that the impact that the UK's decision and what may come from the EU and some other countries may in fact make a big difference to what can happen in that budget. Because if you're relying on this thing for $600 and something million, I'm not so sure that it would be a good thing to rely on in the current circumstances, knowing now what we know. So, Dr. Fontaine, help us out here. And let me just open up your mic now to you So you can tell us about those things and then relate all of that for us if you can. What Dominicans apparently are resolving to do, which I think is to ensure that they get free and fair elections based on a level playing field, based on some of those things that Dr. Andrea so eloquently put together, representing the people's agenda. So see if you can marry those two things for us, Dr. Thomson Fontaine. Over to you.
How much time do I have, Mr. G?
Take as long as you want.
A very good evening to your distinguished panel, Gabriel, of course, Dr. Andre, and yourself, and Lambi, and to many listeners. Approximately, let's see, 13 years ago, it was, I believe, 13 years ago, I was brought to court. In fact, I was at home in the United States when I heard a knock on my door, and I was served papers by Roosevelt Skerritt, suing me for defamation, suing me because I've written several articles in 2009 and 2010 about the sale of Dominican passports to crooks and to criminals. Gabriel read one of those articles tonight, part of it. But I was able to detail a number of individuals who had received Dominican passports and who, in my mind, were simply just, it was just a matter of time before the Citizen by Investment program would be brought to a halt by the US or by the Europeans or by the British. It took 11 years, but it has happened. 2 years ago, a year ago, when the European Parliament gave an opinion about the Citizenship by Investment program in Dominica, I was very clear that the program would end by 2025. I said 2024 or 2025. That was how long I would give this program. I think it's happening probably 2 years earlier. And most likely what we've seen the British do will bring an end to the passport program in 2023 and possibly 2024. Now, tomorrow, Wednesday, I'm appearing in court. I'll remind the Dominican public that I'm out on $150,000 bail. I learned today that a young man who murdered an individual in Dominica is out on a $50,000 bail. Another individual who went into a hospital and murdered a man who the night before was shot. He went in to finish the job. He's walking the streets tonight, a free man. So much is wrong about Dominica. This current government, and you heard it tonight in the budget speech, we talked about the budget speech. So much of that is wrong. When a minister of health or former minister of health can say that we have the best health system in Dominica, when people are dying from fear of even going to the hospital, a hospital that doesn't have the basic band-aids. I saw a gentleman on radio a few days ago talking about having to be discharged to go home and buy his own paracetamol. A hospital that cannot even provide band-aids and paracetamol, boasting about 7 operating theaters. Well, how many of those operating theaters are working? You know, the lies that have been told to the Dominican public, believing that all of us are gullible, to stand and say that the economy of Dominica is the best that it has been, when this economy is depending upon a product that is now clearly, in the eyes of everybody now, will know is not sustainable. When you have all of that going on, and you have this government lying continuously to the Dominican public, you have a prime minister believing his own lies because he believed, and he believed that ultimately he would be the master of all, charging over $2 million per diplomatic passport. I have already outlined or given the Dominican public 13 names that we found out. There are lots more, but 13 diplomatic passports. If you multiply each of them by an average of $2 million, that's $26 million unaccounted for, additionally to the $7 or $8 billion that we are talking about. The world is taking notice of Dominica. And what we see, what has happened with what the UK government has done, has really brought the light on Dominica in a way that is embarrassing, in a way that shows us as just another banana republic, a government of thieves, a government of liars, a government of that is incompetent, especially when you consider that the country is doing so poorly. The level of poverty in Dominica, the number of individuals who cannot make ends meet. I cannot tell you, Mr. G, the number of requests I get from people on an almost daily basis because they're not able to pay the $250 for the child in preschool. Persons who cannot afford this, they cannot afford the other. School is open, I can't afford a pair of shoes for my child. You have that over and over and over again with a government that had an opportunity, by the way, to make good. But the greed, the avarice, the belief that they're above everybody else. And Gabriel made a very good point tonight, and it's worth noting that this RICO Act would really come back to bite people. And people, you know, I read today from a new director of the CBI program, and I hope she knows what she's getting into. Because everybody who has anything to do with this program is marked. Because this program in Dominica has been used for money laundering. It has been used, and that has always been our fear. It has been used to provide passports to criminals. I talked about the terrorists, the number one, then the second, the most wanted terrorist in the world from India having a Dominica passport. When we engage in that kind of behavior, how do we expect to escape? You know, recently I had the opportunity to hold discussions with some US government officials in my capacity as a leader of the United Workers' Party. And we discussed this issue of the sale of Dominican passports. And the US government, they were very concerned about not coming across as the ones who would condemn a small country like Dominica to a life of misery, because they felt that if they took certain actions, it could hurt the program. At the end of the day, people would blame them, the United States, for bringing an end to the program, and with the impact of that on the population. So the fact that the British government has taken this action, knowing full well the potential to obliterate, the potential to, in one fell swoop, wipe out the economy of Dominica, tells you that they have weighed their own security, their own national interests against the potential demise of a former colony. And I've said that they are prepared to preserve lives. They are prepared to preserve the sanctity of their country. And what they need, what is at stake there, is the demise of the country. They could not wait until December. They had to do it now. There was this fierce urgency of now because, according to the British, the government of Dominica, in a very reckless fashion, had issued passports to persons who were known security risks to their country. Now, if these individuals were known security risks, were to go on to create some havoc in the United Kingdom, should the government of Dominica not be held accountable? Should Prime Minister Skerritt not be a co-conspirator? Because he should have known at least that these individuals were in fact a security risk to the United Kingdom. But in this period of greed, in this period of the more we get is the more we want, anything went. And so that's where we are, Mr. G, tonight, in a very dangerous place in Dominica. Dangerous because at the end of the day, who suffers? Is the average Dominican person. Who suffers is a person like me who, in the past 10 years, I must have gone through the US over 60, 70 times. You know, several times a year, either go visiting or traversing, catching a plane. Each time you have to have now you would need to have a passport, a visa to do that. So the innocents suffer as a result of the actions of this government. And there is more suffering to come, because with more than 60% of the budget, as you heard today, on account of CBI revenues, then they have a problem. But let me just say that, I want this to be more of a conversation and to get the people in as well. But let me remind the Dominican public, in 2016, I wrote an article in the Dominican.net lamenting the fact that the CBI program in Dominica was only bringing in 25 million US dollars a year, because the budget for 2015-2016 showed a total of just $23.6 million. And I raised that concern publicly. I went on the radio. I said, how could that be? How could it be that Antigua, with a much smaller program, in that same year reported $250 million in revenues? And how could it be that St. Kitts reported $450 million in revenues, and in Dominica we were reporting 25 million? Because at that point, we began to push for the government to publish the names of persons who had received passports, because this is the law of the land. If you're going to issue those names, they must be gazetted. And so we pushed for the gazette. And lo and behold, we got the names of over 2,300 individuals. And all of a sudden, the contributions moved from 23.6 million to 140 million, then 200 and something, and now we're up to $600 million. So as early as 2014, 2015, this government was already in the business of diverting the resources of Dominica to God knows who for God knows what. And that's where we are. So it's no surprise to me that many years later, we are $7-8 billion short, and I'm told it could be a lot more. Because as far as we know, there's a lot of work going on. A lot of attention is now focused on Dominica. The Al Jazeera report was the opening. There were journalists now working very hard to bring the truth, a lot more information that I would never know, or Gabriel or Dr. Andrew would ever know. But this information will be forthcoming. And there's a lot more bowing of the head for Dominicans. There's a lot more bowing of our heads in shame from what is going to come out, from what this government has been doing. And at the end of this, Mr. G, the question that I want to ask Dominicans who are listening to us tonight, and in particular, my good Dominica Labour Party members who have been supporting the Dominica Labour Party blindly for all of these years, is it worth it? Does this government deserve your blind allegiance and your blind support? Is it worth it for you as a Dominican to be put in this position where you're now looked on as if all of Dominicans are corrupt, all of Dominicans are greedy, all of Dominicans are supporting terrorists, all of Dominica? Is it worth it? And that's the question that we need to ask ourselves. This blind support of a government that has done so much to harm us, to harm our reputation, and now to make our own economic situation the worst it can be. So it's okay. The Minister of Finance can talk about the international airport and so on, but as soon as the CBI program ends, this is not going to finish. It is very likely that this international airport will not be finished under this regime. Very likely. And I could go on and on, Mr. G. There's so much going through my mind. But in terms of the emotion, it is one of shame. It is one of concern for my fellow Dominicans. Concern as well for a lot of persons who are going to get caught up in this net of money laundering. We're going to have to pay for those crimes, because these are crimes. And I only need to remind Dominicans that the former Barbados minister, just within the last year, was sentenced in Miami. On what charge? The charge against this minister was that as a minister, he diverted 30,000 Barbadian dollars through the US, through his dentist in the United States. It was just $30,000, but this $30,000 was a bribe that he had received, and the money was sent for the US. As soon as he left government, landed in Miami, he was arrested, and he's now serving time in jail for $30,000. Let that be a warning.
Well, that certainly should be a warning, and especially since Gable and yourself, Thomson, mentioned the RICO Act, and I would like to hear a little bit more about that and how that would implicate the ministers in the cabinet. Dr. Andre, we also heard Thomson mention that over 13 diplomats that we know of have this diplomatic passport who may have paid for them. I want to talk about that a little bit more because, I think this is going to be the source of more and more and more problems, more and more pain for Dominicans. It is one thing to be selling these passports to crooks and criminals. So you have people in fish markets selling passports as though it's Dewey Show or as though it's whatever it is, Toby Taboo, whatever it is. But it's another thing to tell me you're going to sell this diplomatic, giving people all kinds of names that countries find so offensive that they arrest them, and then when they arrest them, these people flash these passports and say, hey, you can't touch me, I'm a diplomat of the Commonwealth of Dominica. So Dr. Andre, I'm going to ask Lambi to open the lines and start taking the calls, but as you go, so Dr. Andre, if Lambi interrupts us now and then, I don't feel bad about it because we want to take the people's calls tonight. Let me just go over to you, Dr. Andre, for your further thoughts on all of this.
Well, again, the reality is that what has happened with these diplomatic passports basically has repudiated the argument that it's not passports we're selling investment opportunities. This is the errant nonsense, Mr. G, that has been propagated by some of these apologists. A couple of them even had a show on your radio station, for God's sakes. That's what they wanted us to believe. But the recent actions of Britain, but there were actions before this recent action of Britain. You remember, and Gabriel Christian might attest to that also, Thomson, that when apparently they were about to arrest the Italian police, were about to arrest Corallo, what did he present? Not the Holy Bible, his Dominican diplomatic passport. And he told them in Italian, Garçon, you can't touch me. Monsieur diplomat, garçon. What did Madwike tell them in Twi language or Nigerian, whatever it is? The same crap. I'm a diplomat. And it would be good to know which prominent Dominicans were involved in ensuring that Madwike got a diplomatic passport. Which ones? Are there any in England himself? Tell us. Who were involved in this? What did they get in return? Perhaps out of the goodness of their heart, Mr. G. But you're smart to believe that, aren't you? What about the neo-Nazi Gabriel and Thomson have written about? The Irish said, Gasso, not tonight, not a shite. We don't want you here. Neo-Nazi representing Dominica.
You want to
Italian mafia, Gasso.
Lambi, did you want to take a call?
There's a caller on the line.
Let's take it. Sorry, Dr. Andre.
Good evening, caller. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good evening to you, Lambi, and good evening, gentlemen, on the program tonight.
Good evening.
There is so much to say, and I don't think I don't think it will take a night, a week, or a day. But interestingly enough, I mentioned earlier in the week, my mom was traveling to England last week. And she had been in England before, and she got there. She got stopped in immigration for almost an hour and a half, being questioned about why she's in England, her visa, her traveling status, and what she's going to be doing in there. The significance of that is, for many Dominicans who say that sometimes we too like politics, or it's not my business, it's them people thing. I not in those people things. So the Prime Minister can do as he please. Sometimes we are so passive, and if you guys have heard me before, I have lamented the fact that our people are too passive in their own affairs, and for some reason believe that the responsibility of good governance after a democratic process is that of the government in office. So here lies a situation where, when she get to England, they did not ask her if she was a Labourite. They did not ask her which party she supported. The only thing they saw was the fact that she had a Dominican passport. And on the Dominican passport does not say which party you belong to. So for those of the people sitting in Dominica thinking that when we complain and we talk about what is happening wrong in our society and asking for better of ourselves, asking for better of our people, asking for better of our leaders, it's about a red, white, and blue. And I will always say this is not about party politics. This is not about Labour Party. This is about the country named Dominica and its sovereignty. What makes me a Dominican? What makes me special? And just that simple situation tells us that when we are impacted, and one of you guys mentioned it, when we are impacted by the deeds of our government, we all suffer. And what I would really like Dominicans to understand, that the bad things that our government does, it's not just about a political party. And over again, we've seen where, we talk about government of the people, for the people, by the people. And we have a government of one man, for one man, by one man, who does as he please. And as a result, my mom, who has spent her life in her community, being an active member of her church, being an active member of raising people like me and other kids in the community, are now left to pay the price for the deeds of our government. Why does that matter again? You go to the hospitals, you go to the police, you go to the court, you go to every government sector in Dominica, the environmental department, the health department, the education department. And even if one or two individuals may be benefiting financially from the passport sale, the country as a whole is being destroyed, and some of us are too selfish to realize that we are aiding and abetting one man in our own demise. And my friends, I know we have Dr. Thomson, Fontaine. You guys are distinguished gentlemen, so your opinions carry weight. But where I see the situation we find ourselves with this individual is so silly. I mean, the constant lies, the constant berating and belittling of people, the constant destruction of what makes us a sovereign nation, our constitution, our flag, our bird, our passport, our citizenship. It really begs to ask the question: are we serious as a people to do what is necessary to get this one-man government off our backs? And as much as we talk about this, I think part of our discussion has to be putting things in place for the sake of the Dominican people, that when the passport situation, the CBI situation, has run its course, there's alternatives for the people of Dominica so that we don't all suffer the demise that we have put ourselves in. I am listening as always. As I said, there's so much to say, but so little time. So I will yield to the other callers and listen offline. But gentlemen, keep doing what you're doing. At the end of the day, history will judge you guys right. And I don't know what intentions people may have, but I think the only intention that I have is to ensure that my mom, my brother, my sister, my friend, my family, the people that I grew up with left back home have an opportunity to be the best of themselves and to be independent and free. You have a good evening.
And thank you so much for those very, very nice comments. Gabriel, Christian, I know you want to comment. I just want to say, in terms of what the caller said, the only interest, the motive that Q95 has, and I can tell you that with clarity, we want democracy in Dominica. We've been saying so for many years. We support democracy, and that is what we want. And we believe that right now, the only way to fortify democracy is to do some serious electoral and campaign finance reforms and regulations, have free and fair elections, have a new election, get a proper government in place that will do the right thing to build the people's lives and their livelihoods and take Dominic on a new economic path, a new direction. Gabriel, Christian, we interrupted Dr. Andre. I don't know, Dr. Andre, whether you wanted to complete your remarks there before we moved on to Gable.
No, you can go ahead. I'll respond after the next caller.
Yes.
If there's a call, Mr. G, let's take the call.
Let's take the call first, and then we go ahead. Go ahead, Lambi.
Good evening, caller. Please go ahead.
Hello, good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night to all good Dominicans, you know. Good night to Dr. Thomson Fontaine, number one economist in Dominica. He's the doctor for the economy. Vote Thomson Fontaine soon. Dominica will be good in good hands. Mr. Skerritt is a dangerous guy to Dominica and to the world. Mr. Skerritt is a threat to the world, is a threat to Dominica and the UK people. I'm telling you, Mr. Skerritt is a threat to your country. He sells passports to terrorists, criminals, anybody for the highest bidder. And the Dominican people, wake up. This guy have to go. All Facebook, everybody saying this guy have to go. And it's time. This guy time is up. And yeah, the time is now. Yeah, thank you very much.
And thank you for that, Gabriel. Again, let's go back to this. Thomson mentioned a number of diplomats. I mean, we didn't even know of these people. Thomson Fontaine started telling us about them over 10 years ago. Now we know a lot more about them. Gabe, tell us a little bit more about some of those and what you know of some of the things that these people have been doing and how they've been caught red-handed in whatever, and they flash their Dominica passports as diplomats and try to get away. But Gabe, I also want you to remind our cabinet ministers about the RICO Act and how they themselves, some of them may not know anything about the inner workings of what's going on there with that passport program, but you need to let them know how they are implicated as a result of this RICO Act. And I think it's important for them to be put on the alert so that they can know for a fact that they would in fact be implicated in this matter. Gabriel, let me just go over you. But before we do, let's take a call, Lambi.
Good evening, caller. Please go ahead quickly.
Greetings, gentlemen.
Greetings.
I want to address Thomson Fontaine. Thomson, you said you met with as opposition leader, as the political leader of the United Workers Party. You met government officials of the USA. I am hoping that you don't disappoint me. You don't have to tell us, but I would hope that you would let them know that they need to do something about this rogue that's operating and that's a danger to the region and to the US. I'm hoping you would let them know that they need to go in and remove this guy. Find a way. Tell them forget about the suffering that the people will suffer for a while. Do what they have to do. Kill the CBI program so that this guy so that we can take this guy and put somewhere. I hope you did that. I hope you didn't disappoint me. You probably wouldn't want to tell us on the air, but I hope you did it. Thanks.
Thank you. Thomson, you wanted to take...
Yes, sure. I can respond to that. Yeah. I think the caller need to understand that that all governments respect other governments, and that at the end of the day, it has to be the people to take it on their own. There is no need for any interference from outside to remove this administration. This government, based on its own record, the people of Dominica should do the right thing. As simple as that. We don't need the US to come in and remove a government on our behalf. The people of Dominica, who can either benefit or lose from this government, are the ones who should take this action.
Yes, having said that, did you want to take another call, Lambi, or should I go ahead? Okay, so having said that, Thomson, nonetheless, I think it would probably hurt our country very badly if any one of these developed countries or allies would indicate in some very subtle way that they no longer had any confidence in this regime. I think this is something that could happen based on what we see happening with all these passport programs and whatever things that are coming out as regards money laundering and so on. I noticed that the change has been made in the management of the CBI program. A recent change has been made. I think somebody else is now managing the CBI program. I'm not sure there's a reason for that, but I understand that is the case.
Yeah, but you can rest assured that these governments are doing things behind the scenes. They're interacting, they're meeting, they're talking to this government. So you can be sure that certain things that you are seeing happening is because of those conversations taking place behind the scenes. But a government will not overtly or do it in a manner that says, okay, yes, it is because of me that is happening. But rest assured that those types of conversations are taking place, and the concerns that these governments have, obviously. But at the end of the day, as I said, it is the people of Dominica that has to do the right thing. And we should not stand by and look elsewhere for our salvation. Let's take our salvation in our own hands.
Yes, in fact, Gabriel, just today, I heard an announcement, I think, I think it was from St. Kitts, that they've approached one of these governments to try to send some people to help to take a look at the CBI program in all of the OECS countries. I think I heard that. So I'm not so sure what negotiations are taking place there to try to rescue it, because the other countries, clearly, like St. Lucia and so on, they're concerned. And they're saying, listen, it's not us they're talking to, it's Dominica. Ralph Gonzalez says, no, you see what's happening? I told you so. Gabriel, your thoughts?
Well, I think there's another call. I want to give the callers an opportunity.
Lambi, let's take the call.
Yes. Good evening, caller. Please go ahead quickly.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, I think the Minister of Finance, he knocked his head on a stone or something before he go in Parliament. We need to do what we have to do. It's revolution time to get those guys out of there. So let's start getting our troops together to make Dominica a better place, and so we can restore law and order in our country. Let us do what we have to do to get those people out of there. Thomson Fontaine, let us work and let's do what we have to do. Let us hit the road. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Gabriel?
Yes, I just wanted to...
let's take one more call from Lambert.
On the overseas line, please go ahead.
Yeah. Good evening to all the distinguished members on the panel.
Good evening, boss.
Amen.
Yeah, thanks for your contributions. I want to touch the issue of expecting foreign, input into helping us deal with our issues in Dominica. You hear everybody talk. They call on the leader of the opposition. They call on the leader of the union. They cry the church, bishop, everybody. But who makes up the church? Dominicans. Who makes up the union? Dominicans. Who makes up the political establishment? Dominicans. At some point, it becomes your responsibility. Even yourself, your personal self becomes your responsibility. When your government stops delivering to you as an individual, as a collective, as a village, as a community, it becomes your responsibility. We are a Christian nation, and there's a story, in the temple moment, and we lose sight of the metaphor and the meaning and what it shows us. There is corruption in the head, and what is the example? The body has to break away from the head. That is the example in the temple story, where there's angst from the Christ, from Jesus. That is the example, And so I want to ask our Dominican people, you know, at some point you have to replay the story in your life, you know. So what we need is some Marys and some Pauls and some John the Baptist and even some Jesuses. That is what Dominica needs now. Mr. G yesterday talked about people coming out and being statesmen and making contribution, not politicians. Stop waiting on the leaders. We ourselves, the regular people, the church-going people, the people who preach righteousness, who preach belief in God. You have to at some time be the vessel of God. And at this point in Dominica, it's more vessels of God that we need people to stand up on righteousness. There's no reason why there wasn't a collective of people in front of Parliament today in Dominica. So to expect foreign governments to do things for you, you're not giving them any meat to work with. There was supposed to be some sense of dissonance at that Parliament today, especially after that garbage that was presented by my friend Irving McIntyre as Minister of Finance. Utter garbage. Utter garbage. So while we wait on this outside thing, I want to tell us it is we who are not living. We who are not living what we're supposed to be living. That is why this thing continues. Not because foreign governments are not coming into Dominica. Peace and blessings, brothers.
And thanks a lot for that. I think Dr. Andre has been saying that, Gabriel Christian has been saying that, Thomson Fontaine has been saying that it is really Dominicans who are going to have to rescue themselves. Nobody else is going to come out and bail them out or bail water for them in their sinking ship. So, but Gabriel, I did notice though that this move by the UK has served as a serious wake-up call for a lot of Dominicans. People who were in their slumber who were saying, well, it wasn't me, you know, like Shaggy, it wasn't me. You know, it's them, it's their thing. I know Dr. Andre likes that song. I mean, people are getting that wake-up call and people are beginning to ask questions. And I'm very happy to see that Dominicans are really now waking up and realizing what is really going on with them, you know, and what is going on in their country, the place that they love so much. I mean, when we hear, and I think a lot more is going to come out because I know that there's a lot more investigations taking place. And I expect that there'll be a lot more revelations. I mean, let's face it, Gabriel. We're talking about $7 to $9 billion that may be unaccounted for. $7 to $9 billion. Somebody knows about it. Somebody knows where it is, where the accounts are. Corallo started telling us about some of them. But I mean, somebody knows. And do we think that the British don't know? Do we think that the Americans don't know? That the Canadians don't know? Do we think they really don't know? That the French people don't know? Gabriel, your thoughts on all of that?
Let me just endorse what our brother Thomson Fontaine said about the Barbadian minister. They waited at the right time before they nabbed him. They did not, Thomson. They did not nab that nincompoop, that scamp, that thief. They did. And it didn't matter that he was a minister of government. So what has happened in the past decade or so is that the RICO statute, which covers bribery, covers human trafficking, it covers extortion, it covers fraud, it covers kidnapping. Are you listening, Dominicans? Are you listening? It covers money laundering. Listen carefully, cabinet members of Dominica. It covers embezzlement. And the way that the federal government has used RICO is that if you are moving money through a U.S. correspondent bank. Thomson is here on this program. Thomson, what is a U.S. correspondent bank? Can you tell the listeners kindly? This is a teachable moment. You got your mute on.
Yeah, the correspondent bank is where every single transaction in foreign currency, before it hits your local bank, it has to go through a U.S. bank. And these banks, they partner with the local bank so that the transactions can go through them. So any transaction originating overseas must go through the U.S. bank before it comes to your local bank in Dominica.
So let's say you have passport money that's been embezzled and it passes through a U.S. correspondent bank to buy furniture at a penthouse in New York City. Does that qualify, sir?
Absolutely, absolutely. It qualifies under the RICO Act.
And the fact that you do not stay there often, but instead have your family members staying there for you, does that shield you from accomplice liability, sir?
It does not. It does not. It
So I
does
want-
not. And Gabe, we have evidence of Dominicans who've opened several accounts, and several. I mean, I did a lot of work on this over the years. The information is there. Individuals who opened 5 businesses in the United Kingdom, registered businesses, and named themselves as the sole director of those businesses.
They've also opened businesses in the state of Delaware, USA. Is that right, Thomson?
Yes.
And they placed property in the name of that Delaware limited
Absolutely.
liability company.
Absolutely.
So, cabinet members, are you listening?
Skyrise buildings. So
Yes.
it's just a matter of time.
So you see, we took our blows. We were Christ-like in the crucifixion of our souls, or if not our souls, at least our bodies, for standing up. But we did it because we love our country. We did it because we wanted to send the message that we did not eat our recess, as they say, that we took our education seriously. And we wanted to share with our people and provide them with the requisite benefit of that knowledge. And so when we sit here this evening and we engage in this public education to tell people to go to their cell phones, their smartphones, and to look up the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, and to find out what its tendrils, its tentacles can do to snap a jaw over the neck of a crook and haul that crook before the bar of justice, we are warning the way that our parents warned us. Because our parents, in the old morality tales that they would teach us, they would say things like, never be envious of someone for what they have, because you do not know how they've gotten it. And so we have urged always for our young people to get involved in Boy Scouts, Girl Guides, Cadet Corps, youth organizations, civic organizations. Do not allow themselves or yourselves to be beguiled by jump up and CO and mortar, because that is the way the regime has crafted a very crafty strategy to whop and twist your minds so you can be clay, malleable in its hands, to pervert your minds and make you but a puppet to be pulled on a string. So today or this evening, we are asking Dominicans to take that scissors and to cut that string, to break those chains around your minds, to do what Bob Marley asked us to do, to engage in a revolutionary transformation of our minds, to purge our minds of that evil partisanship and that Kool-Aidism, the red Kool-Aidism, the Kool-Aid that has been drunk by an entire nation, it would seem to me, like Jim Jones had the folks in Jim Jones's compound in Guyana, the People's Temple, before the great leader who said things like, God is good all the time. And all the time, God is good. But God is not mocked. And here tonight, we are saying, we're laying down the gauntlet. We're saying, Skerrit, your time is up. Do not resist law enforcement when they come to arrest you. Give yourself up. You have enough money stashed away, I'm sure, to get yourself a good lawyer. It's not us. We're not the ones who said that they're offshore banks and a Dominica bank account in Switzerland. That was your ambassador. So why don't you go ask him? His name is Paolo Zampoli. You know where to find him. That's your friend. Those are your friends. And so we are saying resign for the sake of yourself. Resign for the sake of your family. Resign for the sake of your country. You have done enough damage. No amount of spin, deceit, lies, fancy speeches, $7,000 suits, and $1,000 ties is going to save you from justice. You need to also help us by telling us where you've put the money. The money that's missing, you need to tell us where it's been stashed. You need to give us an accounting. So I suggest PricewaterhouseCoopers. Is that such a company that is well respected, Brother Fontaine, for auditing? I'm not sure.
Yes, Price. Yes.
I didn't go to fine school.
Yeah, there's still.
I am a little bit of an ignoramus when it comes to those things in high finance. Maybe Justice Andre might have a Canadian firm that he might recommend for forensic accounting. Honorable.
Yeah, Pricewaterhouse certainly is very well known among others, to be honest with you. That
You
will
see,
not be a problem to dig
yes.
out or to ferret out the money where it's hidden.
But,
So,
Dr. Andre, quite apart from the entrails or the tentacles or whatever you have, Rico, to bring it down to earth, to what people like us understand, the common man. What our parents would tell us? Sao fui canti, c'est sao ye. And they used to tell us, show me your friends and I'll show you who you are. What are your further thoughts on that?
absolutely. And the good thing is, at least from the perspective of good governance, is there is a dirty trail. There is a dirty trail of unsavory relationships. Wasn't there a famous picture? Wasn't there a famous picture of some folks cutting a cake? Was it in Dubai? And
Macau.
Macau, 3 of the 4 were arrested for fraudulent behavior, at least fraud-related charges. The trail is there. I mean, there's nothing which could be hidden based on what we know. And that is why I'm confident that these governments, whether it's the British, the Americans, the French, they have the goods on Dominica. They have the players in their crosshairs. And I'll tell you frankly, it's just a matter of time. As Prime Minister Gondal says, we don't know when, we don't know where, but it's just a matter of time. And that's what's going to happen. But as one of your callers said, we cannot depend on somebody on a white horse to come and save Dominica. We have the obligation to save ourselves, to rescue ourselves, because we have been given the mental fortitude to do so. The problem is too many of us have frittered away that mental fortitude, have sacrificed it because of the handouts that we get. Persons walking on Saturday nights in the dark with brown envelopes, giving their supporters help just to ensure that those who are even suspected of supporting the opposition do not receive any help. How low can you sink? And many of these folk go with a handbag on the crook of their shoulders. Some of the men with a big cross around their necks and a big fat Bible in their hands. They go to church on Sundays, and they are the epitome of piety, the epitome of humility, and the epitome of devotion. But no amount of white clothing, no amount of ties and jackets can hide the darkness within. And we have to stand up and exorcise that darkness, the darkness that envelopes the land, the darkness which haunts Dominica, like the Dracula movies we used to look at decades ago. There is hope, my friends, because this darkness cannot continue for too long. The seeds of destruction are being sown as we speak, and we have to stand up and be counted.
Yes, we have to stand up and be counted. Here's a comment from one of the people who are online. These remarks by the health minister is a classic example of gaslighting. What was this minister of health smoking before he prepared his budget address? I don't know. Don't ask me that. I don't even know if he was smoking anything at all. We do not have a healthcare system in Dominica. The person continues to say, what we have is neglect of healthcare. Even the nonsensical name switch from PMH should be viewed as an affront to our people. That is why people must stop referring to PMH as the most absurdly combined words that no one should ever say out loud. This is a very silly name for a building in which ostensibly seriously ill patients seek medical care, which is clearly lacking in that area. The health minister seems to put more focus on a name and the importing of foreign specialists than on the well-being of the patients and investing in our own local specialists. Meanwhile, what we see is the powers that be refusing to renew current contracts of our medical professionals. This is totally unacceptable, and we will witness further decline if no action is taken. It's time to change the current trajectory, demand the immediate resignation of Mr. Skerritt and his cabal. But Thomson, we've been saying some things for quite a while. We've been saying no government can sit in power forever. We've been saying that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. It seems to me the time is coming when Dominicans are going to be demanding for change. It seems with all these events that are now catching up with the regime, all the events that are now taking place. I mean, and we have to project our thoughts to what is coming. I don't think we're just scratching the surface now in terms of what the British are doing. I expect a lot more to come. So Thomson, here's the thing. Dominica has to turn a corner. Once this government goes, it has to be replaced by good governance, good government that is based on level playing field, free and fair, decent campaigning, people debate and talk about policies and programs, and put a good governing place that could transform this economy. So let us talk about beyond where we are now, Thomson. What is your view, your vision of where we should be going beyond this? Because we have to go beyond this at some point. We cannot be just there wallowing in this kind of thing forever. I mean, ordinary Dominicans just cannot make ends meet. They cannot pay the bills. They cannot pay the stuff to send the children to school. They cannot pay for the healthcare. They can't pay for, there's so many things they just cannot afford. While we're telling our public servants who are working so hard, many of them have studied very hard and become qualified people, ordinary people's children. We tell them all you can get is 0.5% or 1% or no percent, while there's billions out there somewhere. Nobody's giving an account for it, but these people's skilled children must suffer. They must come and beg. One minister said they came to us and begged on their knees. Thomson, your thoughts, where we should go from there? You want to unmute your mic?
Perhaps the worst part about all of this, Mr. Gregoire, is when you compare those who have benefited from the program and those who have not. A whole population of Dominica has not really benefited as much from the CBI program. Those who have benefited are the guys, the slick sellers that we see on YouTube in their $15,000 suits, peddling our passports, making millions. Guys like the Haydens building 2 high-rise buildings in downtown Dubai. These are the people who have benefited immensely from the sale of our passports and not our people. So how do we reverse that? How do we look forward? How do we look past what we now have? And I think where I talk about our taking our salvation into our own hands, we have to start with electoral reform, where the people of Dominica can vote their consciences. Because what you really want is a government that cares about the people, a government that will be looking after the interests of the Dominican public first. And this government does not, in so many ways. When you consider the fact, Mr. G, that you want to put an extra 100 feet on the airport, and you import a whole company from Barbados to do that. Not only do you import the company, you import the trucks, you import the truck drivers, you import the backhoe drivers, you import the guys to mix the cement, you import the guys to carry the water from the river. It is unthinkable that the government could be so uncaring about its own people. Where you have truckers, where you have people with the equipment. You're building an airport, the same thing, over and over again. You have Chinese cutting grass on the roadside or plugging a road, dismantling of the public service, of the public works. When you have that, when you have this, all of these companies, Dominica Strong and this other one from St. Lucia, all over, where you have this government treating these people with such disdain. You know, it tells me that this government does not like the people of Dominica. And I cannot for the life of me understand, with all of that evidence, with all of that in your face, it's not even subtle. It's not even subtle. We see the dump trucks being offloaded. We see it. We see the operators arriving at Melvin Hall Airport. It is not hidden. It is all there in the public. Dominicans are saying it. And yet, we cannot tell this government enough is enough. We cannot tell this government that we should be looking after the interests of the people of Dominica first. And that is what we need. We need in government a group of people that are concerned about the development of the country, that are concerned about the creation of wealth. And I keep talking about that. I keep talking about how can we create wealth, not only for our generation, but for the generations to come. Every single person who has left Dominica, I believe, has gone in the pursuit of a better life for themselves and for their families. That is offered in St. Martin, in Guadeloupe, the United States of America, in France, all over. And thousands of Dominicans over the years have gone in pursuit of that. Why can't we do that very same thing in Dominica? Why can't we use the resources that we have? Build industry, build our agriculture sector, build a marketing to match with that, build an essential oils sector, build a water industry that is the envy of the world. These are the kind of things I want to be the envy of the world, not state-of-the-art nonsense. You're about state-of-the-art, the envy of what? How can you have a hospital and claim it is the state-of-the-art and you cannot treat people? These stories in the internet are horrific. Babies are dying in the hospital after they're born. A young lady from Granford just lost her life because I'm told she was misdiagnosed after having given birth to a child. And that is happening over and over and over and over again. We can do better than that. But the people of Dominica have to take a stand. And we need to reject this Labour Party government. It has not worked for Dominica. It will not work for Dominica. And it is not working for Dominica. So we need to take a chance, get rid of this government, and put in place. And I must say, as a leader of the United Workers' Party, I believe that within the United Workers' Party, we have a group of people who have shown a record of development, who have shown a record of developing this country. All of the major roads, new roads in Dominica built, the number of schools and high schools and so on, the investment in education, the investment in agriculture, the investment in manufacturing that has been done by the United Workers' Party. This is very much alive. That is the kind of blueprint that we need, that will put people to work, that will put Dominicans first. We'll say that we will give the jobs to Dominicans, and if there are surplus jobs, let the others come in, but not the other way around. You cannot have Dominicans sitting on the roadside, truck drivers sitting on the roadside with their trucks packed in their yards and seeing a foreigner driving a dump truck to a work site. That is unconscionable, Mr. G. That should not be happening. And the Dominican public should be standing up strongly against us. I don't care if you're a Labourite or whatever persuasion you have, but if your political philosophy allows you to justify that, then something's wrong with that philosophy. Your politics should not so blind you that you would not condemn a situation where our own Dominicans are put at a disadvantage so that foreigners can take away. That boast of the Prime Minister that in 1 year, $219 million was shipped overseas by foreign workers, when your very own workers only take home $108 million. Twice the amount of money shipped out that is made by Dominicans in Dominica. That is a shameful record. And on top of that, you hit all of the issues of the CBI program. But just on that, just on the strength of that, the Dominican public should have taken after this government, faire point couille, do away with this government, and put in place a government that can build this country on the pillars, on what God has blessed us with: water, agriculture, essential oils, manufacturing a tourism product that is in fact the envy of the world, cheap, clean energy, the list goes on. The resources are there, the people are there to do it. The governance is what we need to get right. And that is where we need to focus on. Get rid of this administration and put in place individuals who can take this country forward.
And obviously, I think you would probably endorse a statement like this, Thomson, that instead of asking these young people to go and smoke marijuana, whatever how many grams you allow them by the roadside and wherever, puffing every on his face, wouldn't it be better if you had got them organized and financed so that they can extract the essential cannabis oil,
Exactly. Absolutely.
add great value to that, export that, and get wealthy doing it? Use
Absolutely.
technology and get wealthy doing
Instead
it.
of smoking their lives away. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Creating another health problem for the medical system.
Absolutely.
Because obviously some people are going to be affected badly. They're going to mix marijuana with all kinds of things. But Dr. Andre and Gabriel, I want to get your further thoughts on this because, you know, Thomson mentioned the Prime Minister indicated recently that 200 and something million dollars went out just in 1 year to foreigners. And after he said that, Dr. Andre, I'm listening today and I'm hearing the member, the parliamentary representative from Marigot, and I'm seeing him in a video making noise for his people in that constituency, saying, listen, here's people who have trucks, brand new heavy equipment, and I'm seeing inferior equipment coming in from Barbados and people taking all the jobs while you have Dominicans who have that equipment standing aside and look. That is after he told the nation, we sent 200 and something million dollars out. We're going to send another 200 plus more because look, we bring more Bajans again to do your work. Your thoughts, Dr. Andre?
I think there is only one reasonable inference to be drawn from this evidence: the obsession to give foreign persons jobs at the expense of locals. It facilitates kickbacks. That's the only justification. Don't take it from me. Take it from those experts in the building industry. When we are told that an apartment costs what, 400,000, 500,000, and our locals tell you that that apartment should not even come close to that type of expense, we know there is only one reasonable explanation for that. Somebody is paying the piper. And that is the hemorrhage that we're experiencing as a nation, a financial hemorrhage. And that ties in with the mysterious mansions that are sprouting all over Dominica. That ties in with the wanton and sense and insensitive display of ill-gotten gains. It is no secret. It's only those who are seeking to justify their own ill-gotten gains who are trying to pull the wool over the eyes of Dominica. Unfortunately, we haven't fully as a nation grasped the existential threat that we face by this constant hemorrhage, this bleeding of Dominica's finances, the debt we have been saddled. I remember Mr. Linton a few days ago talked about the conversion of this line of credit into a loan of approximately $140 million, which Dominica is on the hook to pay.
Well, that was during an election year, I think.
That's right. And that is just the tip of the iceberg. It's just the tip, or should I say, just the top of the mountain, you know? We have been burdened and pressed down, just as how this Moroccan hotel is sinking into the ground. That is a metaphor for where we are as a nation. We are sinking into the ground of despair and destitution and bankruptcy. That is why we have to take this thing so seriously. God will not just help us, because He'll be telling you, what are you doing to help yourself? And He'll be saying to us, the CCJ has spoken eloquently to you in its July 22nd, 2022 judgment. The British are speaking to you about this incubus on your backs. Al Jazeera has spoken to you about the hungry hyenas which are rampaging the landscape of your island. A few years ago, Gabriel helped me. Was it the ABC or NBC or whatever, BC, I don't know, carried a program with respect to the problems with our passport sales program. What, I mean, who else do you want to speak to us, to warn us?
60 minutes.
60 minutes. Tell me, what other warnings do you need? Huh? These people just don't like Dominica. They hate Dominica. It's because of colonialism. This is the garbage that is being peddled to Dominicans today. And some persons are repeating that as if it is manna from heaven. What an abject disgrace. It is sickening.
Gabriel, I'm sure you have some further thoughts on that.
I just want to endorse Brother Zed Lloyd in New York, what he said. We have to liberate ourselves. England can help us, other countries can help us. But I just want to endorse what Brother Thomson has said. We have to build a united front for a transitional government. You can't put the fox to guard the hen house. We cannot have electoral reform under a bandit regime. They've said they want to be there for 50 years. And if you try to say anything, call you traitor and throw water on you. Let me just talk about the Moroccan hotel, because I must confess, Brother Irving stole the little thunder that I had. Just this week, I was interviewing an engineer who happens to be my brother, a civil engineer. And I said to him, I remember when we were at the grammar school, Irving, you should remember, at the back of the technical wing, wasn't there a soil laboratory, Mr. G? The guy was called Cook. Short, black guy called Cook. And I would see him there with his test tubes and his different apartheid. So if you're going to build anything in Dominica, this is associated statehood days. You had to go to the soil lab. Am I right, Mr. G?
You're quite right.
We had a soil lab, Thomson Fontaine. I know you're SME boy, but we at the grammar school were blessed. We had a grammar school with all the equipment, the lathes and so on, and there was a soil lab in the corner. So if you're going to build a road or building, you get your soil tested. This is in 1960s and 70s. In the 2000s, the 21st century, this government, the puppet regime, the one that talks about colonialism, that has put Dominica under Chinese colonialism, is gifting a hotel from Morocco. And it's now the everlasting sitting aquarium, breeding goldfish in its basement, sinking in the bog. Where's the laboratory, Irving? What happened to that lab?
But Mr. G, isn't that the record of this government, though? Isn't that the record? Even this inability to even appreciate a gift or to make use of it, it is mind-boggling. It really is.
Well, Thomson, you'll recall that hotel was supposed to go in Marigot, and somebody decided to move it and put it down there in sinking sand.
Yeah, and then the Marigot Hospital is built and it is not used. I was shocked. I went the Marigot Hospital is shuttered. It has been built but shuttered.
Gabriel, your mic is muted.
If you're in Marigot Thomson Fontaine and you get a stroke or a heart attack, you have to be transported almost 2 hours, through tortuous roads, to Roseau. This is what we have. And when you and I grew up, there's a Marigot Hospital, When we grew up in Dominica, there's a PMH hospital where at one time people would leave other islands and come to Dominica for surgery.
Dominica.
There are people who've left Washington, because of cost differential to go to Dominica and have surgery.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I know, that's all. Are we in the era of true
And we are really lying to the Dominican public for something that is so obvious. Because
are we in the era? Is this the era of Chupul? I mean, you know, in those days when we grew up, the patois was kind of kept out of the house and so on. But right now, it's a joke. It's a blooming joke. I mean, here we are, Irving and I, Thomson, yourself, Mr. G, Lambie, and so on. We were an associated state of Britain with our own government, with people who didn't have 2 doctorates and so on, and they were doing 1,000 times better. It makes me not want to get a doctorate and so on. I mean, it makes you want not to go to school.
Well, don't tell that to Andre.
Well, you know, that's the real doctor there now. That's the real doctor now.
But here's the thing, Gabriel, let's remind ourselves. There's a lady called Dr. Clarissa Etienne, right?
Clarissa Etienne.
Do you remember the days when we used to boast about our how we call it, our primary
healthcare system?
It was the
number one in the Caribbean under her leadership.
Today we are in all kind of things about our hospital is the number one. I even heard recently something else, some other piece of equipment is coming to the hospital that's going to make it even a greater state of the art than it is. But and even today in the budget address, I heard the finance minister talk about something else. I'm not sure if it was in agriculture. I'll have to go back and listen to that thing there. Another state of the art. We're going to be the first in the OECS. I heard him say that.
Well, we're
Sheridan, Gregoire, what happened?
Correctly? I thought I heard him say we have 7 operating rooms, including an operating room, even in our own operating theater. It's an operating theater with an operating room, and there are 7 other operating rooms.
What they should have done, they should have called Sheridan McKenzie and asked him how to make toilet paper. You see, because if your hospital cannot even provide tetanus shots, you have to go and buy it at a local dispensary for $300. If your hospital cannot provide basic linen, if persons are misdiagnosed, if there is no equipment to diagnose certain problems and so on, and people are dying, unfortunately, then how can you boast about state of the art of what? State of the art. We have a state of the art morgue. That is what we have.
That's what it is. People are dying from fear of going to the hospital. People swear they prefer to die at their homes and go to the hospital. That's what we have. That's reality.
Let me give you a quick thing before Gabo. I mean, it's not a laughing matter, but I always remember Blessings talking about his experience at the hospital. And on the hospital, they brought a patient in the bed next to him, a COVID-stricken patient. Blessings took off. A nurse running after Blessings. It's not a laughing matter. Blessings said, "Not tonight, not a shite." Blessings went back to St. Joe. That is what they're boasting about, for God's sakes. Give me a break.
I just want to say that, you know, sometimes we have to try to inject some jocularity in what is a rather somber situation, because, you know, everybody's disassociating. St. Lucia said they're not in it. St. Kitts said not me. And Ralph Gonzalez, I don't agree with him on many things, but he said the hammer, to use his words, the hammer is coming down.
I told you, he said, I told you so, man. Hammer is coming down.
Indeed. And so what tonight we have to be sure, we have to make clear to all people. Said it, a young man who called a while ago said it, our future, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, dearly beloved, resides in our hands. We've asked for Scary to resign. We're also asking for the cabinet to resign, so we can have a transitional government that can be comprised of competent Dominicans from across the political spectrum to initiate electoral reform. We cannot have the fox guarding the hen house. We cannot have any decent electoral reform under a man who has perverted the cause of justice, bribed in elections, and done all those other things that he should not have done, despite what the CCJ said in dicta. So that's what has to happen. Because until and unless we can get a democratic government in place in Dominica, until and unless we can get rid of this one-party state mentality, until and unless we can get rid of this corrosive, caustic, acidic, destructive, partisan.
Your mic got muted, Gabriel. You need to unmute your mic.
This twisted colorism and partisanship that has caused Dominicans at the bidding of the Prime Minister, throw water on them, we will know no peace. We will know no progress, and there will be no hope. And so, dearly beloved, let us commit ourselves this evening to the duty that God has given us to do right as He's informed us to do right, to rid ourselves of this cancer that has made of our country a land not of splendor, not of beauty, but of self-destruction. Let us get back and prepare for the resurrection of our best hopes. God has given us Dominica. Dominica is our land. We shall have the victory. We shall overcome.
Well, that sounds like Gabriel's closing remarks right there. If he needs to make some further closing remarks, he'll let me know. But Thomson, as we prepare to leave, because you see the 10 o'clock hour has already come and gone, as we prepare to leave, I just want to go back to one thing, that we can leave on a positive note. We've been talking about healthcare. Why? Because it's so important to every single Dominican. You don't red or blue or purple, what the color is. When you go to the hospital equalize. You know, somebody said New York equalize we. Well, you same thing in the hospital. When the president went to the hospital, where they put him? He's in the hospital, yes. So here's the thing. Thomson, tell me something. With $7 to $9 billion out there, can't we even a little national health insurance program and cover everybody? So we can really use some of that money to really do what they think, put all the equipment the hospital needs, train all the people we need, bring in all our doctors, IP and Dr. Dale and Dr. Christian and all these people who are out there. We have plenty doctors out there, you know, who would be happy to make a country to country. Bring them back. Tell them, listen, guys, come home. We'll make things all right for you. Come home and help us out. We need a state-of-the-art hospital. We need a state-of-the-art equipment, state-of-the-art services, state-of-the-art personnel who really care about the people of Dominica, not people who can't speak the language. You don't even understand what they're saying when you're a patient in there. You have people talking to you. You don't even understand what they're telling you. Why not use our people who have experience out there and who care? Why not take some of these billions and equip that hospital properly? At least make sure you have toilet paper and band-aids and paracetamol and so on, and well beyond that. And then cover people so they can have a card, a piece of plastic, and when they come, they swipe the card. An insurance company pays through your social security card or whatever it is, your national insurance. Thomson, as we go, let's talk about that a little bit so we can leave something positive with Dominicans in their minds as to what can happen if only you would do your work to cleanse that voters list, to get your electoral reforms, your campaign finance reforms, to have free and fair elections. Then you can get good governance in there to do things like that for you. Your thoughts, Thomson?
Yes, Mr. G, absolutely. You know, one of the issues that we have in Dominica is because of people's levels of income. If you're not able to get somebody to your family to bail you out or to probably do a GoFundMe for you to take you out of Dominica if you have serious illness, the fact of the matter is you're likely to die in the hospital in Dominica. So why not, as you said, why not have a national health insurance scheme? You know, a national health insurance scheme that covers everyone, but that is subsidized by the government, so that the vast majority of Dominicans who are not earning enough because this government has not provided the jobs for them would have to subsidize them so that when they're ill, they can go to the hospital, but they are short of quality health care. Life, in my view, can be meaningless if you don't have access to good health care. Because that, you know, a healthy person and an unhealthy person, that makes all of the difference. You can be as rich as you are, you can be as poor as you are. If you do not have health, you are nothing. So why not invest, as you said, use these millions of dollars, invest into a national healthcare system that can equip the hospital, have the equipment there, you know, the CT scan, the ones to do the blood cleansing for the dialysis patients and so on. Have those things in place. You can then attract qualified doctors. We have a number of doctors and surgeons out there who are willing to give their time. And nowadays, actually, you don't even need to be physically present. A number of hospitals practice this thing where the doctors go online and they take pictures of the patient and they share and exchange and they bring someone out best to do it.
Telemedicine.
That can be done. You have people who are willing to do that, but you need the equipment in place to do it. So that's just one thing that can be done with this CBI money. The agriculture, we can revamp the agriculture system. And I've been begging for this, Mr. G, with me over and over again, say, why not use this money, invest in some kind of factory, invest in a factory that can do some agro processing, that can fishing, that can can fishes, that can do the water, do something. All of these that needs to be done, you know. But Mr. G, we need to start somewhere. I mean, hopefully the scales are coming up the eyes of the Dominican public. People are beginning to see for themselves, and not only listening to the politicians who have been lying to them, but now they can see for themselves. They're seeing the people dying at the hospitals. It's their friends, it's their neighbors dying. They're seeing the state of our schools, where teachers have had to push their hand into their pockets for the little 1,005 they make in a month, have to put their hand in the pocket to buy rulers, buy erasers, buy stuff for the school. They're seeing that. And they understand now that they've been fed a big fat lie by this government. The question is, what are they going to do about it? And that is what I want the Dominican public. I want them to leave the Dominican public with. What are you going to do about the fact that you've been lied to? About the fact that this government has been extremely incompetent. In fact, it'll go down as in history as the most incompetent government in the history of this country, that has really impoverished or made poor thousands and thousands of Dominicans, destroyed their livelihoods, taken away all forms of dignity from them, forcing them to march up the steps of the ministry in a red clinic, has done all sorts of ways, you know, brought in foreign workers to work and make money in their faces and boast about taking money out of Dominica. All of those. What more can Dominicans sustain or take from this government without reacting, without fighting back, without pushing back and saying enough is enough? So that's what I want the Dominican public to think about tonight. How are we going to push back against this government? How are we going to ensure and push for the electoral reforms that we need and put in place a government that can work truly in the best interest of the Dominican public?
And Gabriel, I know you have a last word before I go back to Dr. Andre. And really and truly, as Dr. Fontaine is saying, yes, people's eyes are opening now, but when you're dead, it's a little late. You can't open your eyes, but what happens is that the politicians, they now come and fix that up with your family, say, okay, I'll pay for the funeral and put my name in the death announcement. But you can't see that, you're dead, right? Dr. Andre will tell us a lot more about that because he understands these things. So, Gable, you know, I mean, I think people really need to open their eyes, and little things like buying a little books, buying a little bus fare and saying, okay, we put a little $300 here. It's a good idea to have Yes We Care. It's a good idea to have an NEP program. But if you're going to do that, have a good program. Have something that really works, that is not done for political patronage. You know, it has to be done because it is what is the right thing to do. That is what the economy needs, the society needs, the system needs. People need that to make their lives better. After all, it is their passports that you're selling like hot bread in the markets. Somebody's mic is open. That you're selling like hot bread somewhere in some market in Punjab. It is the people's passports you're selling there. And then, I mean, when the British and so on take action, it is the people who suffer when they're traveling. They have to go and pay for visas now. Sometimes when people are overseas, in addition to having to send those barrels down, they now have to go and send money for people to be able to pay for the visa to come and visit them in the UK. So it is not a joke. This is something real that real people are going to feel why politicians are living in luxury and having fun and just coming out and say, okay, don't worry them fellas, man, if they come and trouble you, throw water on them. Take Lennox and just disappear, mister. Put Thomson in jail, man. Let's forget about mister. It's these fellas, man. These fellas, that's how they call it, right? Gabo, let us sort of wind up this thing now and tell Dominican people what it is we really need to do going forward to really make their lives better. It's not about UWP or freedom or labor or red or blue. It is about the life, the living standards, the quality of life of every single Dominican.
Thank you, Sheridan. In law, you're taught that sometimes the most persuasive evidence is that which is objective and which corroborates that which you.
Your mic is muted. You're not hearing you for some reason. Yeah.
And Mr. Thomson, Dr. Sheridan. Let's in 2 minutes. Just get the handshake. Right? And I think you're going to get me, Now, is he just present? If you go in, yeah, okay, all right. Okay.
We're not hearing too well because it's a little muffled.
This is the issue. This is him. Okay. I'm going to take you down for a moment. The cruelest cut is when Roosevelt Skerritt continues to lie to our people. Because what I was showing was Roosevelt Skerritt with myself, Dr. Thomson Fontaine, Athenia Henry, Clinton Shillingford, Julia Sampson. Following the symposium in New York, he invited us home when he became prime minister to continue work on the diaspora policy project of bringing Dominicans together. Am I correct, Thomson? Am I correct, Irving? We were all together, all of us, at the Brooklyn Marriott, December 7th, 2001. Roosevelt Skerritt and Vince Henderson, Matt Peltier, Adi Noah Douglas, Lloyd Pascal, all of us working together. Because that's always been our principle, you see, of working together, holding hands to build a better country. What did he do? He turned his back on his own Dominican people and he found himself in Dubai. He found himself all over the world with a coterie of thieves. I'm not the one saying that. That's how they were arrested. And we cannot, as Thomson says, blind ourselves to that reality. We have to remove the scales from our eyes, you see. And so Thomson Fontaine is in Dominica, not advising the government of Dominica, not working in agriculture. Dr. Andre is in Canada. He didn't get $750,000 or $500,000 for the brilliant piece of exposition. Free of charge. We were all there together. Dr. Shillingford, a distinguished botanist. You were talking about the processing and the value adding to cannabis, sativa. Well, you need to study your chemistry, to do that. You need to have a botanic gardens and a botanic science program to do that. Is that where we are? Where's our botanic gardens? The one that we knew, the glorious botanic gardens of yesterday. A sham now, a shadow of its former self. And so we are here to rebuild the wasted cities, to rebuild our country. We are preparing for the resurrection. But you see, before Jesus Christ had to be resurrected, the old had to pass away. So before we ascend to better, before we see the remission of sins, the old has to pass away. The old must die so the new can be born, you see. The old life of lying and stealing and cheating must pass away. The old life of a director of audit who does no audit that can discover the Binba ball. It was discovered by one Lennox Linton. That kind of auditing macaque has to pass away, you see. The old DPP that can find a way to haul before the court patriots on bogus charges and allow for the nulli prosequi of the treating and bribery case. That kind of DPPism has to pass away, you see. The old public works department that provided so much greatness to us has to be rebuilt, you see. And we have to have in Dominica again the kind of laboratory science so we don't build a hotel on a bog, you understand? Sinking there, a ready-made aquarium on marshland. The old sort of agricultural system of a rotten regime that got a coffee factory from Hugo Chavez's government and allowed it to rot away in the forest without one package of coffee ever produced. That has to die before the new Dominica is born, you see. But it will require each and every Dominican boy and girl, man and woman, to stop going in parliament with fancy hats and capes as if they're Batman and Robin, trying to fly away from the problems of the world. And instead of dealing with things possessed of a degree of gravitas and seriousness, make as if you're going into a carnival band on Carnival Monday morning. So we need to understand that that seriousness needs to come to the fore again. We need to be able to trust each other again. We need to be able to believe in our leaders again. We need to be able to tell the truth again. We need to be able to teach the children right from wrong again. We need to be able to bring back into our school system the old value system of waste not, want not. Honesty is the best policy. Birds of a feather flock together. And indeed, understand the old Christian principle of that which you do unto the least of my brothers, you do unto me. That kindness and that grace and that compassion that did not cause for our island now to be a cesspool of violence and crime. We want to see the birth of a new Jerusalem, and I do believe, deep within my heart, we may not live to see it, but we will work assiduously to ensure that our children and our children's children shall live in a free Dominica, not be slaves to a bunch of bandits, money launderers, and colonialists who've sold us down the drain. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for those words, Gabriel. I mean, I think you're leaving us on a very good note, a very positive, high note. Justice Dr. Irving Andre, you're going to bring the curtains down for us. You have the final word. All right, but I believe you will very likely agree with Dr. Thomson Fontaine and Gabriel Christian on all of what they said in their closing remarks.
You're absolutely correct. In fact, I adopt everything that they said. Quite frankly, I wouldn't even attempt to add to their eloquence, their erudition, their patriotism, and the fact that they are animated because of that enormous crisis that we now face. We have, despite the clouds which hang over Dominica, we have to have hope. We have to think that we can make things better. Now, note that I say that we can make things better. I didn't say that we have to hope that things will get better, because things can only get better through the collective efforts of those who cherish a life of decency, of honesty, of persons earning a living wage, not persons who are being given the very minimum to ensure that they come back with their hands outstretched, begging for more. We have to aspire to a society where everyone can be proud that they're earning an income that can help them provide for their families, send their children to school, aspire to greater heights, and be a credit to themselves and to their families. That is what we aspire to. And we aspire to do that through hard, honest toil, not through crookery, not through immorality. We aspire to a situation, a society where Dominicans on the ground are treated equally where they don't have to stand aside and look as $240 million is shipped out of Dominica, and you have a leader boasting that look at the wealth created by Dominicans for foreigners, without seeing the cruel irony of doing so. Look at the situation where a leader can boast about having insurance without appreciating the cruel irony that 90% of his fellow citizens do not have it. Look at the cruel irony in a country which is earning so many billions of dollars in terms of the sales of passports, where there's no unemployment insurance. Look at the cruel irony where persons are lamenting and putting sad stories on Facebook that there was no toilet paper at their state-of-the-art hospital, which has 7 operating rooms. Look at the cruel irony where persons are lamenting that even things like paracetamol, otherwise known as Fenze, linen, it's not there. Look at the irony where a Dominican had the audacity and the resources to build a toilet manufacturing plant, and they shut him down. They denied him an opportunity to ship toilet paper to Venezuela because they perceived that he was a political enemy. Look at the efforts of 2 fellows, one named Lugue, one named Fontaine, who started shipping Dominican produce to the French islands. And some of the political opponents were telling farmers, do not sell your produce to them. Look at the irony of a situation where you have someone who is now the president of Dominica telling people, do not shop at OD Brisbane. Look at the cruel irony where the wife of a Dominican leader is telling people, Garçon, don't go to Suki. Look at a situation where years ago, the wife of a government official is saying, we will not support nature island water. We will not have it here. That is the land that we're now living in. This type of victimization, which knows no bounds, this cruelty, this punitive action, this viciousness, that is what pervades the landscape of Dominica. And that is why we have to fight it with every ounce of energy that we have. This is not a fight. What is the biblical saying again? We fight not against flesh and blood. We fight against dynasties and principalities, those who would seek to establish Dominica as a personal estate and will it to their sons. That is why we have to take this fight. And we have to win this fight, because to lose it is to basically perish. And that is where we are. And I believe that there are many of us, and there are enough of us to take this fight, irrespective of those who will say, let us take out Mr. Throw hot water on them. Don't give them jobs. Make sure that when they dissent, they have to go abroad to survive. You are better off dead if you are not red. We have to have the ultimate victory over those Philistines, those Pharisees, those who've perverted the Christian message, even those religious leaders who've betrayed their own faith and their own calling and their own moral code. We have to make sure that they do not have the final say. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Yes, and we can finally add to that, those who say, Dios suse sell.
No kidding. Who is sucking salt right now?
Who is that you're talking about? Are you talking about the secretary, the general secretary, the secretary general?
I don't know how to pronounce big words like that. But the point I'm making is, as we leave this place tonight, Thomson, I want to wish you well for tomorrow. I know you have a case coming up. I hope it is one of those instances where this bogus...
Can I see a prayer for Thomson on radio?
Yes, by all means.
We can bow our heads in reverence. Heavenly Father, we know that Brother Thomson is an innocent man. But like the Christ, he's been crucified, like all the patriots, crucified for speaking out truth in defiance of corruption in high office. Today we are ruled by the Pharisees, but we know that Pharaoh one day must let our people go. Because Pharaoh was warned, the plagues came, and he would not listen. And so we pray tomorrow that we shall have a dismissal of this case, that there shall be a miracle. Smite the enemy of truth, Heavenly Father. Smite them down and lift up our country from the tyranny that it now wallows beneath. So that Brother Thomson and all those unfairly persecuted, not prosecuted, but persecuted, who are standing up for justice in Dominica, shall have a new breath of freedom. Forgive us all sin. Bless Q95. Bless Brother Lambie. Bless Brother G, Brother Irving, Brother Thomson, all the patriots. Bless our country. And yes, indeed, we ask you to open the eyes of Prime Minister Skerritt and soften his heart so he does the right, honorable, and decent thing. Step down. Tell us where he has hidden all the monies, all the ministers. Please convert them to the right path so we do not go the way of Haiti and other bloodthirsty countries where people are incinerated in the streets. But we can hold hands again and we can breathe again in a free nation. In your name we pray, as we ask for the blessings on Brother Thomson and victory for justice and the cause of a better nation. Amen.
Amen to that. And I couldn't have said it any better. I don't think any of us could have said it any better. Thomson, tomorrow, I hope that he will do the right thing and let's get this case out of there. Nolly Cross, whatever the big word is that Dr. Andre can. I understand some cases have been dismissed recently and cases that in fact are much more substantial than what you have been charged with, these bogus charges.
Other than that, I mean, serious criminal cases, serious murder cases, and drugs, and in the hundreds, in the millions of dollars, and it's unbelievable, unthinkable.
And the thing that you were not even there, I remember you were in the studio at Q95, and then yet you find yourself being charged for something that took place on the street. You were not even on the street. So I hope tomorrow good sense can prevail and they can get rid of this thing once and for all and make the court in there look half decent again. Because as it is there now, it looks as if some of these people are just doing things that are responding to the political whims, and that really should not be happening in our court system. I hope really and truly that we can do the right thing and get rid of, dismiss those cases that are outstanding. But let's just take the opportunity to thank all the folks who've been listening to us from all over the globe, in Dominica, in all the communities in Dominica, in the region and globally. Thank you for all of you who have stayed with us on Facebook and on YouTube. We thank you for being here with us tonight. Next week, we'll have another show again. We hope you'll join us next week for another very interesting discussion. But let me just say thanks to my panelists, Gabriel Christian, Dr. Thomson Fontaine, Justice Irving Andre. Thank you for all the work that you guys have been doing for country. And I really look forward to us meeting again in this place and talking again on another important subject. And I want to thank Lambie and Sherwin for helping us to stay on the air tonight and doing a great job taking the calls. And so let me just finally say good night to everybody and see you again soon. All the best tomorrow, Thomson. All right. Take care, Gable.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Good night, everybody.
G, Irving, Thomson.
Right. Sleep well.
Lambie.
Okay. Take care, everybody.
Thank you. All right.
Yeah, it's not doing well.
Oh, no, 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 no. Oh, no, 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 no. Oh, no, 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 no. Oh, yeah, yeah. Looking out my window, and I'm a thinking of tomorrow, and I'm a wondering what the future will be. Thinking of the children who are the victims of oppression, beaten down by wars and eaten up by starvation. I'm saying, when this ugly will be over, and the children can go out and play. I wanna see when all oppression will be done, and and the people will rise up and say, freedom at last, freedom at last, so free, freedom has come, freedom has come, oh yeah. Shall I sitting in seclusion, dumbing in my meditation, and I can hear the voice of the sufferers cry for justice. Ooh, another ugly war is a raging, threats of nuclear wars are rising, and the world is gripped by fear of mass destruction. I'm sharing when there's ugly war be over, and the children can go out and play. I wanna see when all oppression will be done, and the people will rise up and say, freedom at last, freedom at last. So free, freedom has come, freedom has come, oh yeah, oh yeah. So much bloodshed and sorrows. There is no future for the youths of tomorrow. Yeah. So many mothers crying, so many funerals. Oh, when we lead it, when we there's only will be over, and the children can go out and play. I wanna see when all oppression will be done, and the people will rise up and say, freedom must go. Too many funerals, oh, when we lead it, when there's only will be over, and the children can go out and play. I wanna see when all oppression will be done, and the people will rise up and say, freedom must go. Too many funerals, oh, when we lead it, there's only will be over, and the children can go out and play. I wanna see